if you're pro-capitalist and you think, I hate the canard, the trope that, well, leftists just say that true communism has never been tried. They ignore all of the times that it has been tried and it's failed and everything. It's like, okay, yes, there have absolutely been issues with various iterations of state attempts at communism. There are massive things like that. But like, it's really, really disingenuous to look at, for instance, Cuba and say that communism failed Cuba, because Cuba has been under embargo by like one of the only two superpowers that had any say in the world at the time that Cuba was like really gaining its independence, and then that like after the fall of the Soviet Union was essentially the only superpower in the world that could express any opinions about like the existence of a state like Cuba and an embargo against it. And so it's like, with everything that's going on with the embargo now, it's really, really jarring to look at people talking about how communism has failed Cuba. Cuba's grid didn't fail because of communism. Cuba's grid failed because it is under embargo by the United States, and people are dying in hospitals when their grid that hasn't been able to have proper construction in decades because of that ongoing embargo has gone down and they can't get it up to help people. Cuba has developed a fucking lung cancer vaccine. Cuba sent doctors out in the middle of fucking COVID and developed their own fucking vaccine or worked with China, but like developed their own treatments for it and went out and like sent doctors to places. Cuba, I don't think, is an example of communism failing. There are issues with Cuba. There are issues with all regimes. I am, in fact, an anarchist, and I am critical of all states. But I hate when people look at something like Cuba and go, oh, well, communism has failed. And it's like, it's a tiny island that is completely, the United States is like, we can't allow any communism in this hemisphere because then it'll be communism too close to us. So we're going to coup people. We are going to support dictators. We are going to, fund drug cartels and shit like that, so that there is never a popular socialist or communist with any form of power in the Americas, because we will not allow it. The entire history of that, and looking at what the United States is compared to what Cuba is just one of those things where it's like this kind of thing isn't even bullying. It's just, it's like fucking setting ants on fire with a magnifying glass. It's just so cruel. So it baffles you that people don't understand that it's the U.S. is doing, and it's because the U.S. is subject to a lot of propaganda. Again, part of why I want to talk about media literacy here is, and media generally, is that in the US, people are really heavily propagandized, but they don't even realize they're propagandized, because the core of that propaganda, that is the first thing that's fed to them, is the idea that there is free speech and that the information that they are getting has come to them through a marketplace of people who have had the best ideas, and that's what's being presented. They don't learn about US imperialism. It's not like, if it's covered at all in schools, it's covered usually fairly glancingly, other than perhaps Western expansion within the continental United States. And so people don't think about people don't know about like where the phrase banana republic comes from. They don't know about the coups. They don't know about how much involvement we've had in overthrowing governments in the entire world, but also in the Americas. Maybe somebody hears about something on Tumblr and like gets angry about like Hawaii or something like that, but like people don't tend to look into it more deeply, and it's just, nobody is, also because of the position of America as the like hegemonic superpower, or the United States as the hegemonic superpower, like pushback against that from outside of the United States is seen as like whining almost, or like petulance. It's seen as, well, you're saying that because you didn't win. We won, and we're the ones who are correct on this. And complaints from within are seen as people who are ungrateful. Well, if you don't like it, you should just leave, go someplace where things are better. And it's like, this is the place that's making things worse for everybody. This is the place that's making healthcare worse for people in the UK. This is the place that's making everything worse in South America. All of the violence and the cartel control and the fucking um, all of that in South America is largely due to like the things that the U.S. did to destabilize large parts of South America. You know, people talk about like homophobia in Africa, and so you know there were like accusations during the Zoran Mandami election of well, you're not critical about Uganda's homophobia, but you are critical of this, that, and the other homophobia. And it's like the homophobia in Uganda specifically is a result of like missionaries from the United States going and reinforcing it. Obviously, there was like a cultural attitude in certain places that like leaned toward that, but it is like Christian missionaries from the fucking United States that caused that problem. So why the fuck are you talking about this Muslim man? like he is not. Yeah. So Delonia says, I feel like there is less and less effort being put into the bullshit justifications for what the U.S. government does. And I think that's correct. Like, I think that's one of the things that is so striking about the U.S.-Israeli war on Iran. I'm really glad I saw somebody framing it that way, and I've seen more people framing it that way. It is the U.S.-Israeli war on Iran. It is not that was a fucking attack, but like, having grown up protesting the war in Iraq, they at least tried to fucking justify it. There's been essentially no attempt to justify it, or it's like the thinnest fig leaf, because if you know anything about the politics of the US and Iran in the last 10 years, it was within 10 years that the nuclear deal was still in place, that Obama had put in place, that Trump destroyed. Like, they were being investigated by the IAEA because specifically we decided that we couldn't trust them, and they said, fine, come in and investigate, lift sanctions. But like the way that the sanctions are used to control people, that's the thing. People don't see the violence of the sanctions. People go, oh well, the sanctions, that's to solve these problems without violence, not thinking about the way that causes deaths as a result of like a lack of access to medical care, not thinking of the way that causes like food security issues and everything like that. And the way that it does violence is because it specifically destabilizes. So I'm ranty today, but who's surprised by that? In the U.S., if it's politics that causes death that isn't violence, we call that social murder. But I don't know if it's called social murder if it happens to the rest of the world, or if it's just imperialism when we do it to the rest of the world.